From award-winning RPG game developer BioWare comes an extraordinary handheld adventure. A whole new role for Sonic with all new rules. Sonic Chronicles, The Dark Brotherhood. Rated E for everyone. Coming soon on Nintendo DS.
Welcome back to Retro Rebound. In today's video, I played another Sonic game for the first time, and man, oh man, did this one call my name. Today, we're talking about Sonic Chronicles, The Dark Brotherhood, an E for everyone RPG. Certainly me, with my love of dark storytelling, will find a home here, yes? Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. As many of you are aware, we've been crawling through the Sonic series, playing spin-offs like this, playing mainline entries. I've learned a lot this year, so I was really keen to get into Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood. This is a game that released in 2008 during what I like to call the golden era of BioWare, because yes, as you can see on the back of the box here, BioWare was the developer of this game. I actually had the opportunity to interview Mark Dara, who was the head of design for this game, helped direct the project, and he said this was the best project he had ever worked on. Now, coming from the team that during the era he worked there made the likes of Knights of the Old Republic, Baldur's Gate, Jade Empire, Mass Effect, Dragon Age Origins, many of these being my favorite games of all time, like BioWare could not miss. This was released during that golden era. So for me, I went, it's his favorite project. It's during the golden era of BioWare. This might be the easiest home run I have ever seen in my entire life. Plus, with my newfound enjoyment of Sonic, it just is a perfect storm, right? We'll talk about it. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're new here and you're into re-reviews like these, retrospectives, nostalgia content, consider subscribing. But as always, let's talk about Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood, beginning with the complete in-box experience. Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood on the front. I love the art for this game. On the cover art, especially, the back art here is really sick. It says, "New role, new rules. Explore an epic world with untold obstacles and shadowy foes. With Dr. Eggman defeated, Sonic's world is at peace until a mysterious menace kidnaps Knuckles. Sonic is now banding together with 10 others, using teamwork and strategy to combat the Dark Brotherhood." Not to be confused with the one that, you find in Elder Scrolls. It's not like Sonic's waking up and they go, "You sleep quite soundly for a murderer." None of that, okay? So anyway, it says, launch lightning-fast combo attacks with one character or the whole party. Overcome obstacles with the unique strengths of your team. And then discover hidden items in over 20 environments. Now for... What in the world? Why is The World Ends With You in here? I didn't even know about this. How did this hide from me? Well, I will write this wrong. I will find a home for The World Ends With You. But for now, it rests quietly with Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood. I am not that type of guy. I don't know how that happened. But anyway, inside we have the inserts here for the Nintendo DS that you would find in a lot of these games, the health precaution guide, and then, of course, what you all care about, the manual itself. So the manual here, not too colorful for a Sonic game, unfortunately, black and white. One thing I found kind of interesting, though, is the prologue is a whole page of its own, and it actually builds up a pretty interesting world that we'll get into when I talk about the story for this game. Now, what I also found really interesting here is the characters didn't have, as you'll see, Sonic, Knuckles, there's Tails, Amy, Rouge, Big, Cream, the Marauders, no Eggman, and no Shadow. Now, Eggman is presumed to be dead, which I thought was an interesting start to the game, but no Shadow, even though he's clearly a party member, I don't know. I thought that was kind of odd to leave him out, but I suppose they wanted to leave spoilers out in the mix. You also see here, there's conversation screens because, yes, there is dialogue and dialogue choices in Sonic Chronicles. There's movement icons, a very key component of the game with multiple characters to play as, a team select, which is how you build your party. The Chow Garden is back in a pretty unique way that I thought was kind of cool. They go over combat and how that works because this is a turn-based RPG. The results screen, how you level up, and then the credits, which are rolled out at the end of this game in a absolutely bonkers, disgusting fashion. Anyway, let's talk about Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood beginning with the story. First, some fun facts. Of course, many of you already know this, but for those who don't, Sonic Adventure actually wanted to be a role-playing game at first. So to me, I feel like Sonic Chronicles deserves to exist already because this was the goal of the franchise when it first hit the mainstream. It feels like things have come full circle with this game. So I was excited to see BioWare, an expert RPG developer who has worked successfully in the turn-based department, transfer a series that wanted to be an RPG into exactly that. There is also a new project in development from fans called Sonic Chronicles Reimagined that has apparently been in development for a couple of years now, as they announced it back in 2020. They are still posting updates on their personal Twitter account. They just said that they updated their websites. So I imagine work is still ongoing with it, but not much is known about the game. Still, I wanted to make sure I shouted it out because the Sonic modding community is absolutely insane. Much like Sonic PO6, this is a game that is being built from the ground up using Unity. Now, let's talk about this story. As I mentioned in the manual section, I found it kind of interesting how they set up this world. So first, the game begins. Sonic is cooling down on vacation. My man's got his feet kicked up. He's like, Eggman's dead, and I don't care at all. Right away, I kind of like that start because they're just saying he is dead. He's not just missing. The man is dead. Cool. He gets a call from Tails. Yo, Sonic, you chilling? Well, sorry, guess what? We got another mission. Knuckles has gone missing. So have all of the Chaos Emeralds. Sonic hangs up the phone. He's like, time to spring into action. Another adventure begins. So immediately I was grasped by the idea of this not being another Eggman story. I thought that was a really good idea, a pretty novel concept, right? Again, I always compare Sonic and Dragon Ball a lot. I think it just happens because while they try to avoid each other, I think they follow a lot of the same tropes. And so I always like to say how Eggman is like pretty much Sonic's Frieza. Dragon Ball always finds a way to bring Frieza back into the mix constantly. And there's now rumors with Superhero that Cell's being brought back in the mix. I'm like, y'all made some of the most timeless villains. Let them lie dead and make new cool ones. They have not done that. And so it was really nice to pick up a Sonic game that pretty much said, yeah, we're not going to use Eggman. So as the game progresses, you find out that the Master Emerald has been stolen by a new group known as the Marauders. Eventually, you're going to find Knuckles, who was kidnapped, and you're going to learn that Angel Island is gone. And they're not sure what's going on here. But what was one of the cool parts of the story is when you learn that Shade is an Echidna, and she's heading up what's called the Nocturnus tribe. Now, as someone who's been playing a lot of Sonic games, you know, Knuckles' calling card is, I'm the last Echidna, right? And I always remember at the end of, I believe it was Adventure 1, when Knuckles is just chilling on Angel Island by himself, protecting the Master Emerald. That's it for him. Like, no one's around him. He's just isolated and alone. I felt really bad for him. And so to see that he knows he's not the only one alive was actually a pretty cool moment and a shocking one at that. So I feel like BioWare, at certain instances, actually managed to take the Sonic franchise and do something different with it. The problem with me personally is the writing. I feel like they didn't let these characters build outward beyond the tropes that had been set for them. Amy is like a shining example. As we all know, Amy's obsessed with Sonic. She's in love with him, wants to marry him, whatever. So this whole game, she's like lying, manipulating, trying to get Sonic to like go on a date with her. And I know it's like a kind of cherry-picked example, but it just, to me, was showing on display that some of these characters just remained within their confines rather than BioWare, again, an expert RPG developer in their best years. We're not talking Anthem hours. We're talking like Dragon Age, Mass Effect, and KOTOR hours. Could not build beyond what had already been set up there. I'm not saying Amy has to be the best character, but I think she could be more than just loving Sonic. I think Sonic could be more than just, you know, quips here and there, you know, a smooth talker. I think it can be more than that. But again, when your game is rated E for everyone, yeah, it becomes a little bit more difficult to write, I'd say, more mature dialogue. So I understand, but it was something that I did wrestle with a little bit. So it turns out that, again, these Marauders are a group of Echidnas, and they are bringing the Master Emerald to Grand Emperor Ix? 9? I don't know, IX, but the X is lowercase, so I'm just going to call him Ix. You can correct me. This is the problem with like text-based only games, is you come up with your own headcanon and how you pronounce things, and then the internet lets you know you're wrong. So I'm just going to call him Ix, because even whatever, if he's not called that, he kind of looks icky. So anyway, Grand Emperor Ix gets the Master Emerald, and he's telling them the whole time they're going to restore this tribe that had mysteriously disappeared, so there would be more echidnas. It's going to be great, right? No, he's actually going to use the Master Emerald to take over another dimension, betraying them. So then it sets up this whole new type of plot in the second half of the game. So Sonic is going to leave his world and go on what is effectively a interdimensional story to hunt down the Chaos Emeralds. So it's a little bit of familiarity and like, go get the Chaos Emeralds, but because the gameplay is so different as a turn-based RPG, and because it's delivered to you through not Eggman, because Eggman is apparently reforming himself when you do find him. It turns out he survived the crash, so he is reforming himself. You're like, okay, I know we're kind of doing the same thing, but it reminded me of how I felt about Pokemon Legends Arceus, where when I was playing it, all the pillars of Pokemon remained. Again, kind of like Sonic here, having the Chaos Emeralds, and you're chasing them down, but the way you interacted with it was different, so in turn, it was a lot more interesting. So that little shift in perspective does a lot for this game. But it's, I think, kind of downhill from here, not because of what's occurring, but this ending just stinks so bad. But before I even get into that, let's start off with, of course, your exploration of this new dimension. So you're going to acquire these Chaos Emeralds, and long story short, once you get them all, you're going to gather everyone who seem to not see eye to eye, if you will, the warring nations, and you're going to all agree to invade the Nocturnus homeworld. And everyone's going to have a special benefit, if you will, that can help you invade the Nocturnus homeworld. So it's like the power of working together is truly here and realized. So then you get there, you fight and defeat Ix, turning into Super Sonic because of the power of the Chaos Emeralds. Again, kind of staying in the confines. Like, yes, it's the Super Sonic moment. We get it. Here we are again. And then here's where things get interesting and really depressing. So when you go to leave for the second half of the game, Eggman's standing there saying, well, I'm going to hang back here because I want to ensure your safe return. I'm like, okay. The guy was a party member for most of the game, so okay. Yeah, see you when we get back. Now, in this time, Metropolis was destroyed. That was because Angel Island had crashed into it when it had returned. So, what happens is they all go into this new dimension, and I imagine time had moved along quicker in, say, Sonic's world compared to this other dimension. So when they come back, Metropolis is no longer destroyed. It has been fully built up by Eggman. Eggman shoots them down, and they are about to die, you would imagine, because the ship they're using, they literally come out and immediately, like, laser, they just get destroyed. What the is this bullshit? This is some of the worst storytelling and ending I've seen in my entire life when this ends. Okay, so they decide at the end of this game, with not only a cliffhanger, which can infuriate people, that they are going to not break, but like snap over their knees and beat to death the fourth wall. I could not believe this with my own eyes. I really thought I was dreaming and that I was going to wake up from a nightmare at some point. That was not the case. Wow, can you believe that ending is what Tails says. What the are you kidding me? Oh my god. Then they start reading the credits themselves. They start reading the staff of BioWare. They're like, did you know who the CEO is, who the design team is? I'm like, who thought this was a good idea, man? Who thought? It hurts that it's a cliffhanger and you want to know what happens next, and they set up an Eggman story that feels a little more natural. But oh my god, this ending. For everything the game kind of did right, I feel like it just got thrown down the tubes, and I'm like, is this... What do you mean we'll see in the next episode? Obviously, they never got to the next episode. They never got to do a sequel. But the way they even worded it didn't match up with what the game was. Like, this was a full-length RPG. So the story, you know, its pacing was a little off. I thought some moments were cool compared to previous Sonic games. I thought it was a little more inventive in its lore, but I feel the writing really let it down. I thought the dialogue choices were also kind of underwhelming because, not that they didn't exist, there were times in conversations you would have like 4 dialogue choices, and I was like, okay, I want to ask this question and this question afterwards, but what would happen is any question you would ask would funnel you down the story path. So it didn't matter what you picked, it would just keep moving you forward. It wouldn't kind of go to a return of the questions where you could then ask the remaining, say, 3 questions, and there would be like a definitive, like, this one will move the story along. So you had to be like very careful with what you selected, and the UI never specified to you which ones would move the story along, because sometimes they wouldn't. So that's what made it frustrating, is like I wanted to immerse myself, learn more about the game, learn more about the world, but it wouldn't let me. Now, let's talk about combat. I think this game, I would have liked it more if the combat was not structured in a way that was designed to infuriate a specific person like me. So it's turn-based, right? I am Mr. Turn-based. I adore turn-based. You can't go wrong with turn-based in my book. I think it is a tried and true method for a reason. So everyone's here. That's the great part. Everyone is here. You can put Shadow in your party. At one point, Eggman in your party. It gave me like Mega Man X Command mission vibes, where I remember getting like Zero and Axel in the party finally, and it felt like an everyone is here moment. I love that feeling in games, man, where it feels like these mystical characters that are so elusive and hard to pull together into one spot have actually accomplished that. So I got a feeling there with that, like seeing Sonic and Shadow team up for attacks. Really cool stuff. So when you start the game, I mean, you're in the minor leagues. You are just whiffing at every single thing. It is frustrating. Your accuracy or whatever, that stat is extremely low. And even when you level up deeper into the game, it doesn't matter. You're still going to miss. Now, that will be solved later on because of a particular upgrade system, but there is a problem with the overall combat system and its flow that I'll highlight, but I want to talk about the individual mechanics first, because there's also POW moves. So think of POW moves like your spells. Like, these are the magic abilities. They spend MP, or in this case, power points, PP. So you'll do all sorts of familiar, iconic moves from the franchise. They'll be registered as POW moves. What happens is when you choose a POW move, it brings up a touchscreen based mini game. And so as you're doing it, you have to like tap the screen, drag your stylus with like the circle in a particular direction, touch certain points at the right time. And if you don't get it absolutely perfect, you're going to do like no damage. So if you turn to the basic attacks, which don't involve any of that stuff, you do no damage. This is where the game starts to really fight with itself, because the touch-based minigames are tough to react to on their own. And then when you do the POW moves, you're going to spend PP. Now, let's say you don't kill these enemies quick enough. Almost every single time, they're going to run away. It'll turn into a chasing minigame, and if you don't catch up to them, then you're going to waste PP. This also means that random encounters will take way too long, and that the payout for XP is extremely low, making combat absolutely tedious. Now, one of the saving graces of combat is the Chow system. You can find Chows all over the world, and you can actually link them to party members. Now, remember what I said about the accuracy at the beginning of the game? One of the Chows that you can equip to your character will make sure that you never miss an attack ever again. Cool, right? Great. Here's what the problem is. As you get deeper in the game as well, you'll fight enemies that, for example, require elemental damage or POW attacks. And when your basic attacks do nothing, what'll happen is sometimes you'll need that elemental damage, but you can't swap out Chows mid-combat, so you feel stuck. Then they run because you tried to squeeze out some POW attacks, you weren't doing enough damage, and it's just that rinsing and repeating. It becomes very frustrating because it seems like the game was balanced with very particular rigid builds that you wouldn't know about because this was all done through internal testing, and they hope that you may stumble into. Because if you do, then maybe the game plays in its ideal manner. But for me, the way I customize my party, and I would say I know what I'm doing with these RPGs, it just did not play or feel great. Now, what's great about this game is the exploration. Running around with the stylus on the touchscreen isn't great, especially if you have like a 3DS XL. It just feels really bad to use. And the map at the top is not that helpful. It looks like a hand-drawn map from some little kid. But what is cool is the little puzzles you can do. So every character in your party has a world-based interaction, if you will. Not exactly a skill check, but like Sonic can dash, Tails can fly, Knuckles can climb walls, Amy can smash boxes, so on and so forth. Big the Cat can walk through toxic clouds, and you do all of this to unlock secret areas and explore and get new items, new Chows, and rings. And these rings can be spent on accessories that you can equip to your characters. When you level up, you can increase your stats. So it is an RPG in that manner, and that part is absolutely awesome. What really adds to the awesomeness is that you can actually go back to previous locations with newly added party members, explore locked off areas, and the game sort of gets a Metroidvania feel to it. I really like this part of the game, and I feel like that was the moment that they really explored some cool ideas. It just feels like they didn't have enough time and weren't familiar enough with the hardware to accomplish their actual goal, which was making a good RPG. Because I think the story was enough to stomach where if the game played well and didn't rely so much on touch-based mini games, but more so like actual calculations and stats to how damage would play out, that this game could have been actually really good. The real killing blow, though, is no matter how much I ever disliked Sonic, one thing I always bent the knee on was how great the music was in this franchise. I always thought that Sonic had a really good finger on the pulse for its soundtrack. And, oh man, I mean, there are just some places like Tails Lab. What is this? Metropolis. What is this? The sound effects have like YouTube royalty-free energy. It's horrible. It's not even close to the legacy that it was built upon, but even if it wasn't, it's not even close to just being okay. It is bottom of the barrel music, sound effects, and I know the DS had an issue with like compressed audio and all that stuff. It's not even like they're trying to play music. There are a track or two that are pretty good, but otherwise it's like gross. It's icks, if you will. I just can't emphasize enough how superb the rest of the series soundtrack is in comparison to this. It is a huge miss. But one thing I can say though is upon finishing the game, the flaws were clear. BioWare was probably more familiar with the DS than when they started, and it really stinks that we didn't get a second RPG, because I feel like Sonic, one thing this game did convey to me is the ideas are there for a Sonic RPG to work. We just needed the proper execution, and I think time was the true barrier for that, because this was releasing between Mass Effect 1 and Dragon Age Origins. Those were two blockbuster games, two huge projects. This had to get out in the middle of that. So obviously it wasn't the main focus, because Mark Dara, for example, the man I interviewed, he was big on the Dragon Age team. So all of his attention eventually could not go into Sonic, and it had to shift. And I think that lack of focus really hurt this game. It just feels like, again, with the ideas that are here, I hope one day Sega does try to do another Sonic RPG. I think it would absolutely work, or incorporate more role-playing game mechanics into current Sonic games. We'll see where they go with it, but those are my thoughts on Sonic Chronicles: The Dark Brotherhood. What do you think of this game? I was trying to, poke around this time because I was very curious to see what the community consensus was, and a lot of people who grew up with it seem to like it a lot, but understand its flaws, but also a lot of people really crank on the ending, and I'm there with you. That is some terrible stuff. I'm curious to see if you have a fond remembrance of this game, or if you don't like it at all. So fire away. Other than that, I will see all of you in the next Retro Rebound. Out.